So another term that people may have some trouble with that's related to the self is the imago Dei, the God image.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, can you speak a little bit about that and help people grasp this?
So the God image, as understood in Jungian theory, is actually that which we make of God. And the God image can be represented in a way of what we consciously know, want to believe, and conceptualize of God. So it is the image we make of it, right? Like this is the picture that our mind makes of God, and oftentimes, which is the big fallacy or the mistake, calls it a God and says, "Oh, I know what God is because I have this God image that perfectly fits the God that really is out there," right? So the God image is just our limited human concept of God. And that can be conscious, but it also is unconscious because that God image is represented in the unconscious as well, right? I mean, Jung uh, refers to many dreams or visions, etc. That are like the historical archetypal representations of God as a mandala or as a wind, or it could be that cannot be named and that is also experienced in dreams, etc. So we do have also unconscious experience of the God image and then consciously put that image into words, ideology, art, and so on. But
Hmm.
it's, of course, just the limited distillate of the
So
God.
one of the ways, one of the things that I think people need to understand is when we use the word image, we're not just talking about a visual pictorial image, but we're looking at this conglomeration of ideas, concepts, and maybe also pictorial images as well. Yahweh is the old man with the beard and the robe up on the in the clouds.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And that can be, the
Oh,
are you there?
Vlado, yeah, you just froze up there. So you can just pick that up from the beginning of your
Yeah,
response.
my Wi-Fi says my Wi-Fi disconnected for a minute here. I'm not sure why. Um, I'm glad we are back. So I was just saying, like it's a representation in a way, like the God image. It's what all the senses allows us to represent it. If it's in terms of feeling, in terms of ideology or theology, in terms of picture, or in terms of anything that one throws there at this idea and try to create the God.
Hmm. So for the Christian, let's say the Imago Dei would be something like God is all knowing, all seeing, all powerful, all good, and takes the form of Jesus as the incarnation of this all powerful, all knowing God.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And some people would go to the extent it's a man, or it's a trinity, but call him him, and it's white. It's not only Jesus, but it's white, right?
Right.
And has long hair, or and is historical, etc. Right? Like people do name their own imago Dei in many different ways, and that's sort of the main criticism of this fallacy in the book Dark Religion, because that's exactly what we call dark religion. If we start to hide behind the God, if we start to appropriate God to ourselves, if we start to say we know actually what God is, what it means, how it works, then we are taking something away from the mystery and making it at the disposal of our ego. And our egos are now creating the God. And we are thinking, fantasizing, and believing we are acting in the name of God, but we are actually unconsciously acting in the name of God. But it's the ego that is behind that. So we are
Right.
acting out of selfishness and all the secret and unconscious desires.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think about that idea that justified the colonization of America, the manifest destiny. It's God intends for us to expand our empire and to Christianize the New World. That would be this kind of dark religion at work in a way, like using God to justify what I want for myself or my country.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. And it's been done in the name of God, so many atrocities. It's essentially, when we think of it from the universe perspective, God has a lot of energy. The self has a lot of energy, right? Because it's unconscious, it can swallow all the projections, but then that energy could be stolen from it and used into manipulation, making people feel bad, shaming them, guilting them, manipulating them, saying, if you don't do that, God will punish you. If you don't follow this teaching, then you'll burn in hell, etc. So it binds with a lot of different emotions that could be used in this very controlling in a narcissistic way that fundamentalist religions, churches, etc., use to coerce people into doing what actually serves their egos rather
Mm.
than the greater spiritual principle of the universe.
And so the idea is that because everyone has an imago Dei, a God image within them, it contains a lot of power. And so people can manipulate through fear because people inside feel that power. And if someone says, God is against you or what you believe or what you do, that fear is going to be like a very kind of primordial fear because of
Yeah,
the
that's exactly
power,
right.
right? The power that the Imago Dei contains, and likewise, reverence, worship on the kind of other end of the spectrum is going to be just as powerful because it's touching into that Imago Dei, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's that, I mean, from the Jungian sort of hierarchy perspective, that's the highest archetype that is sort of encompassing all the other archetypes. So, and there is also this religious instinct that is bound to it. We all have this compelling question: what is our meaning of life? Where are we going with this, and why we are here, etc. Some things that could not be ever answered by scientific means because they remain mystery. But whoever decides to manipulate that mystery, they can do a lot of damage with it as well. In a
Mm.
similar way, right? I mean, we had some original attachment to our parents, or there was a disruption of this attachment that manipulative person can really exploit later on in our relationships because we have this yearning, we had a tendency and need to be loved and to love, etc. But if there was some kind of um, disruption of it or distortion of it, that it's really easy to take advantage of because part of that is split in unconscious and is just projected out onto the leader, guru, partner, etc. Whoever
Right.
feels that needs to do that.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same dynamic, but on a kind of a smaller, more personal level. Like I could present myself as a kind of loving father figure to you, and if you have like a father wound, it's going to kind of excite that father archetype in you or constellate the complex, and whatever happens in that interface between the two, whether it's a reverence or love or a strong dislike or hatred, it's going to constellate those emotions, right?
Yeah. And now imagine that this person is religious and grew up in a
Mm.
very religious, strict environment and would like to rebel against the highest archetype, which is God, right? Like, I mean, you can rebel against your own father and you can criticize your father and eventually you can get in a fist fight with your father or something like that, right? But when it comes to these religious archetypes, say you are actually arguing against the word of God You are infidel, you are sinful, you must not do that, right? So the fear that is associated with that is really the deepest existential fear. Because, like, who am I, a small human being to judge, to criticize, or uh, to tell God that God is not right, right? Sort of a Jobian task to
Hmm.
happen. A lot of people are deathly scared of it, and that's why who holds that card in their hands holds a lot of power as
Mm.
well.